Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a beautiful, somewhat tragic, but ultimately inspiring story from ancient Indian folklore. It's the tale of Sharara and the Chain, a story that explores love, sacrifice, and the true meaning of freedom. So, grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, and let's travel back in time. In a vibrant kingdom nestled among rolling hills and lush forests, there lived a princess named Sharara. She wasn't just any princess. Sharara was known throughout the land for her kindness, her sharp mind, and a spirit as free as the wind that danced through the palace gardens. Her laughter was said to make flowers bloom, and her wisdom was sought by ministers twice her age. But despite all the admiration, Sharara felt a sense of confinement within the palace walls. She yearned for the world beyond, a world she only saw from her balcony. One day, a traveling merchant arrived at the royal court. He brought with him exotic silks, rare spices, and jewels that shimmered like captured starlight. Among his treasures was an object that immediately caught Princess Sharara's eye. It was a chain, but like no other. Each link was crafted from a different, lustrous metal: gold, silver, copper, even some metals she couldn't name. It was delicate yet strong, simple yet breathtakingly intricate. The merchant explained it was called the chain of connection, said to bind the wearer to their heart's truest desire. Intrigued, Sharara asked her father, the king, if she could have it. The king, who doted on his only daughter, gladly purchased the chain for her. From that day on, Sharara wore the chain round her neck. It felt cool against her skin, a constant, gentle weight. At first, nothing seemed to change. She still lived her life within the palace, attending to her duties, reading her books, and dreaming of the outside world. She felt a little disappointed. Was the merchant's story just a tale to make a sale? But then, strange things began to happen. When she longed for the scent of the sea, a salty breeze would mysteriously drift into her room, miles away from the coast. When she wished she could see the snow-capped mountains of the north, a visiting painter would arrive at court, his latest masterpiece depicting those very peaks in stunning detail. It seemed the chain wasn't binding her to a person or a place, but was instead bringing pieces of the world to her. Sharara was fascinated. The chain was indeed magical. It connected her to her desires, bridging the gap between her secluded life and the vast world she yearned for. She felt less trapped, more content. The chain became her most prized possession, a secret link to the life she couldn't have. It was her comfort, her companion. She never took it off, not for a moment. Years passed. Princess Sharara grew into a wise and graceful woman, loved by her people. Her reputation for insight and compassion spread far and wide. Suitors came from distant lands, drawn by tales of her beauty and intelligence. But Sharara turned them all down. Her heart, she felt, was already connected to the world through her magical chain. No prince, no matter how charming or powerful, could offer what the chain did, a taste of everything. One day, the young man arrived in the kingdom. He wasn't a prince or a nobleman. He was a simple stonemason named Kale, with calloused hands, a kind smile, and eyes that held the depth of an ancient forest. He had been hired to repair a crumbling section of the palace garden wall. Sharara often walked in the garden, and she couldn't help but notice him. He worked with a quiet focus, his movements precise and respectful of the stone he shaped. Unlike the boastful princes, Kale was humble and observant. He didn't talk about his accomplishments. He talked about the stories the stones told him, the way the sun warmed the earth, the songs of the birds at dawn. He spoke of the world not as a collection of places to conquer or own, but as a living, breathing entity to be experienced. For the first time, Sharara found herself engaged in conversations that didn't revolve around court politics or royal lineage. They started talking every day. Sharara would tell him about the books she read, and Kale would tell her about the villages he'd passed through, the people he'd met, the mountains he'd climbed. She was captivated. His stories weren't just descriptions, they were vibrant, filled with the sounds, smells, and emotions of real, lived experiences. She realized that while her chain brought her echoes of the world, Kale had held the world in his own hands. A deep and powerful love began to grow between them. With Kale, Sharara felt a connection that was far more profound than the one her chain provided. It wasn't a magical link to a desire. It was a real, human bond, built on shared laughter, mutual respect, and a genuine understanding of each other's souls. She found herself falling in love not with the idea of the world, but with a person who was a part of it. But there was a problem. The chain. As her love for Kale grew, the chain on her neck began to feel different. It was no longer a gentle, comforting weight. It started to feel heavy, restrictive. When she was with Kale, laughing at one of his stories, she would feel a strange, cold tug at her throat, as if the chain was pulling her back, reminding her of her old desires. When she thought of a future with him, a life outside the palace, the chain seemed to grow tighter, almost suffocating. She finally understood the true nature of the chain of connection. It didn't just connect her to her desires, it bound her to them. It had kept her content in her gilded cage by feeding her just enough of the world to stop her from truly seeking it. It was a chain of comfort, yes, but comfort can be its own kind of prison. Her love for Kale represented a new desire, a desire for true freedom, for a real life, and this new desire was in direct conflict with the old ones her chain represented. The chain, once her greatest treasure, had now become her greatest obstacle. It was a physical manifestation of her past self, the princess who was content to dream. But she was no longer that person. Kale had awakened a part of her that wanted to live, not just observe. She was faced with an impossible choice: cling to the magical comfort of the chain, which offered her safe, predictable connection to the world, or break it and embrace the unknown, unpredictable, but real future with Kale. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, Sharara went to find Kale in the garden. She held the chain in her hand, its mixed metals cool and heavy. She told him everything about her loneliness, the magic of the chain, and how it now felt like a burden. Kale listened patiently, his forest green eyes full of empathy. He didn't offer a solution. He simply took her hand and said, "Sharara, the chain connects you to what you want. But love connects you to who you are. The choice isn't about the world versus me. It's about the life you dream of versus the life you want to live." His words struck her heart with profound clarity. The chain offered endless possibilities, but only one at a time, and always at a distance. Love, on the other hand, offered one path, but it was a path she could walk, a reality she could touch and feel and share. With tears in her eyes and a newfound resolve in her heart, Sharara looked down at the beautiful, intricate chain. It had been her friend for so long. It had saved her from despair, but it could not take her any further on her journey. With a deep breath, she gripped the chain with both hands. It resisted, clinging to her as if it had a will of its own. For a moment, flashes of all the wonders of the world flickered through her mind: the roar of a distant waterfall, the glitter of a desert oasis, the silence of a snowy peak. The chain was tempting her, reminding her of all she would be giving up. But then she looked at Cale, at his steady, loving gaze, and she saw a different kind of world. A world of shared mornings, of hands held through hardship, of a life built together, stone by stone. That was the world she wanted. With a final, determined pull, she snapped the chain. The links clattered to the ground, the magic dissipating like mist in the morning sun. A sudden feeling of lightness washed over her, a feeling of pure, unburdened freedom. She wasn't a princess bound to her desires anymore. She was just Sharara. The story of what happened next varies in different tellings. Some say Sharara renounced her title and left the kingdom with Cale, traveling the world not as observers, but as participants, living a simple, happy life. Others say the king, seeing the depth of his daughter's love and her newfound happiness, accepted Cale and they lived at the palace, transforming the kingdom with their combined wisdom and humility. But regardless of the ending, the core message remains the same. The tale of Sharara and the chain is a powerful reminder that sometimes the things that bring us comfort can also be the things that hold us back. True freedom isn't about having access to everything we could ever want. It's about having the courage to choose what truly matters, even if it means letting go of something beautiful to make space for something real. Thank you so much for joining me for this story today. I hope it gave you something to think about. What did you think of Sharara's choice? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more stories from around the world. Until next time, stay curious.